Welcome to the TRICHOMES Weekly Roll Up, where we cover the latest in legalization topics and cannabis news headlines. Within a recent assistance initiative focused on averting suicides within the military veteran community, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has clarified that it will not finance cannabis related therapies. On Monday, authorities announced that a Russian oligarch who invested more than $1 million into the U.S. cannabis industry has been charged for his role in the scheme. And Mike Tyson, the infamous boxer, recently announced his new line of cannabis gummies called Mike Bites that are shaped like an ear, a nod to the 1997 match where he bit Evander Holyfield's ear. And now, here are your hosts, Jason Kitamura and Jared Duggins.
Testing. Can you hear me now?
I can hear it perfectly.
Perfect. And you're in my ears. Perfect. Happy Friday, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. It looks like you're checking in from the W over there, like the hotel lobby of a nice, quiet place.
Seems that way.
Nice. Well, glad to see you. As we'll inform the audience here, this is a Friday that we are lacking John Bond again. He's over traveling the world somewhere and enjoying life and doing cannabis stuff as always. But today's special guest is Jason. He's coming out of whatever he does over there as the chief technical officer, out of the office and off the computer, and now he's talking with us for this Friday. So how's your week been going, Jason?
It's been going well. We're making a lot of updates to our app, so good things are coming.
Yeah, excited about that. And sometimes here we actually really don't shamelessly plug our app too much on the show, but we should start doing so. And I think next week we'll start putting up the link here on YouTube for people to follow. So a lot of stuff going on with the app, a lot of stuff going on with the build out here, and looking forward to the next few months. But enough about trichomes right at the moment. This is the weekly roll up. And as far as federal news, we've got the VA and our military in the news. But otherwise, we're looking abroad and how the Russians are trying to get involved in cannabis here locally. Lo and behold, talk about that a little bit. And then Mike Tyson. So where do you want to start off?
Wherever you want to
go. All right. Well, one of the things most near and dear is the VA suicide therapy, right? When it comes down to that, there's been some posturing. There's been some people talking about how things are looking for the military and treatments of PTSD. There's been companies talking about the use of even psilocybin and that kind of stuff starting to be tested. But as of now, even with all the excitement about cannabis, the biggest thing to come out of the military is that they aren't going to fund anything surrounding cannabis, because treatment and practices approved will need to be consistent with applicable federal law. So really the big thing again here is we're talking about decriminalization, legalization, that kind of thing, rescheduling. You've been part and parcel of the cannabis industry for a while now. What do you think it is that moves us from where we're at currently to a spot where some of our most important people get a chance to get this stuff tested clinically? Is it decriminalization, rescheduling, or?
I mean, honestly, it's hard to say. I mean, I think a lot of it is political. If you looked a little bit into that story, the VA, they say basically their easy answer is it's not legal. So that's why they don't want to put it in there. But they also, in some places, stated that the testing so far, which there was, a organized test that went on, even though it only had 76 participants, it was still an official test that was funded by, the government. They claimed that most of the results were anecdotal, like they didn't have any, solid results. When actually they did, when they had some of the THC numbers correct, they actually did see some improvement. But nevertheless, they claimed that it wasn't sufficient enough to make it show that it's going to be beneficial. But yet they're hearing from tons and tons of veterans who say that they need it, that it works. So the really question is that is legality the only roadblock, or is the roadblock from legality also could it be something as controversial as like pharmaceutical money being transferred over from one treatment to another? Because in aside from cannabis, what's going on right now is a very high and lucrative industry. So you have to kind of look at it that way as well. Like how much of it is the political part, how much of it comes from pharmaceutical funding, whereas something that might work that's a lot more accessible and a lot cheaper comes along. Is it in the interest of when there's money involved? I mean, what do you think on that part?
Oh, absolutely. The pharmaceutical field is trying to hold on to their reign as long as possible. They know that out of this plant comes disruption one way or another. And so realistically, they benefit from it not being studied as long as possible. So
exactly.
Yeah, really, when it comes down to it, politics and the people that have the money right now are probably a big roadblock in the way of this testing and the reassignment to a different schedule, a descheduling or a rescheduling as to where real scientists and clinicals can start being and doing on a federal level, getting these federal grants and that kind of stuff. So it's a huge thing. We all know that.
Yeah, I mean, because it just makes sense, if because not only for the application of PTSD, I mean, there's a lot of applications that are proven scientifically with cannabis. So, for federal legalization, at least for, medically, really makes sense. I mean, what's the roadblock? But then again, it's not only cannabis. You see a lot of stuff, especially like in stem cell research and stuff like that. There's a lot of crazy things that, stem cells can actually cure and actually improve people's lives, but yet there's a lot of legality roadblocks. But I personally, I don't really get it. If it works and it's all proven to work, why not just allow people to improve their lives? But there's a lot of other political reasons and outside reasons and forces that go behind the scenes that make it make roadblocks appear.
Oh yeah. Well, and and shout out to Kingfish, Phil out there in Texas. Thanks for registering and commenting on this one, Phil. And much to a testament to his comment there is these clinics, the VA. You hear about some of the military, the people who have fought for us and then come back, and our veterans here, they get on the merry-go-round and they're prescribed one thing and it's prescribed another, and then they're going around just like it is with people who have are quadriplegic or any sort of daily requirement of things. That people are on a myriad of drugs and they're being prescribed things from doctors who don't necessarily talk to the other doctors who are prescribing other things, and it's really something that the doctors basically. I was listening to another podcast the other day with somebody talking about the value of today's medical license, right? A doctor coming out of college, the half-life of that education, and then thereafter, these doctors are being educated by the pharmaceutical companies, right? They're being educated by the latest and greatest science, which is basically in sales and that kind of thing. So, at one point, does it become the doctors versus the pharmaceutical companies really just pushing all of this? And yeah, it's these cyclical things that none of the powers that be want to give up. You can see that 100%. So who is it? It's the positive speaker. I just saw him on of all podcast, Impulsive, with Jake Paul or whatnot. He just had Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then the other guy, the positive, the guy with giantess, the pituitary gland, Tony Robbins. And he was just talking about that and how he had a huge, basically a life that was strewn with medical peril, right? It was one way or another. It was surgery or death or this or that or whatever. And just by a certain series of happenstance and circumstances, he fell upon different different remedies for what he was going through that altered the course of his life. And really none of the doctors even knew what was happening until he finally ran into one specific person that had a specific, level of study in that area. And none of these other doctors knew how to do it because it wasn't their specific level of study. So yeah, until we're able to get a doctor associated with federal government to even be able to say the term medical marijuana, because that's not allowed on a federal level. That's not allowed as a defense. That's not allowed as a term for why they're doing these things. Until you can get a doctor that can actually get behind something and say, you know what, we tried medical marijuana on this, it's going to be real tough. And like you said, I think it's still the powers that be behind that with the money. And
It's
yeah,
a whole chicken and the egg situation, because I mean a lot more medical doctors would come forward if it was federally legal, but they won't federally legalize until some doctors come forward and say that, hey, it's beneficial. So it's like
absolutely.
we're kind of at a standstill. But I mean, at some point in time, because especially in this scenario with PTSD, a lot of the alternative medicine is so detrimental, addictive, and it causes more problems along with it where they're not seen with cannabis. So at some point in time, they need to not only weigh the benefits, but weigh the negatives of what they're taking, and at least give an alternative choice to some of these people.
Absolutely.
It has to happen at some point in time, for sure.
Well, we're getting closer every day, but it's like the people who are affected and are still in prison, the people who are experiencing pain on a daily basis and not having this as a choice because of the consequences. But some people, I can't remember which comedian it was. I think Bill Murray, or I can't remember who it was. But the most dangerous thing about cannabis is getting caught with it, right? And yeah, that's really an unfortunate truth for a lot of people in America still. So
No,
until
especially
that
if you're in
happens,
Russia too.
right,
You
right.
know,
Oh yeah, no, we're
yeah,
trying to enter the country.
yeah. I'm
Um,
still talking about our basketball player that's stuck over there, but
yeah.
that's crazy.
Well, speaking of Russia, maybe we should be having some Russian oligarchs help us on the federal lobbying, because the next story, he seemed to push some things around there in the way of getting some licenses through and throwing some money in the right places. Well, until he got caught, that is. So, um, but yeah, from the VA to a Russian oligarch, and yeah, the WNBA player, she's a great segue there as well. Wow, a lot of stuff going on in Russia.
Well, and I think that's what that story, obviously, it's a lot of it is because of what's going on with Russia. It's not something unheard of that there's some, backdoor kind of deals going on with some politicians to get some licenses through. That happens a lot. But in this particular scenario, because he's a Russian oligarch, it became headline news, for sure. But it
Absolutely.
is, kind of bringing that into the forefront. There's a lot of these licenses are getting done because there's things that are going on in the background, for sure, because it's so competitive, as you would know. Um,
Yeah.
but this whole Russian oligarch thing is getting it's going to be pretty interesting, because there are a lot of Russian-backed companies out there right now. I don't know if you heard just recently with Cureleaf, they're having this whole issue because their co-founder was from Russia
Right.
and is one of the biggest investors in Russia. So now everybody just assumed Cureleaf is a Russian-owned company, which they have their entire PR campaign going on overtime, making sure everybody knows that they're a U.S.-based company. And
Right.
he wasn't the creator of the idea or the creator of the company, but just because his name's on it, they're getting backlash. And there's as this this war or whatever you want to call it keeps going on, you're going to see more and more of this with all sorts of type of companies. I mean, what do you
Oh
think about
yeah.
that?
Absolutely. When it comes down to it, is Russia is getting headlines right now. So the more things that media can tie to it, the more you're gonna see it. And between cannabis and Russia, it's two of the hottest topics. Cannabis obviously taking a backseat to wartime acts being thrown from Russia towards Ukraine. But realistically, everything from a 420 video, there was somebody being interviewed on his way. They were being extracted from a camp. on a bus, and he identified with smoke weed 420 legal there, and it was a British reporter, and she said, no, I'm from Britain. He said, well, is it legal in Britain? She said, I don't know, but how many people were over there? There, it's as much as he was being evacuated from a site. Cannabis is one of those things that it's on the forefront of everybody's mind. So the combination here of is they're going to try to find as many ties as they can to it, like you said. I know the origins of Cura Leaf and Cura and Select and that kind of thing, and not going to attest to anything like that, but I know Cura Leaf, excuse me, Select came out of Oregon, and Cameron Fiorni. I don't believe he's got any ties to the Russians or any oligarchs or anything like that. But I'm not here to throw down any testament or anything like that. It does seem pretty funny though that people are trying to tie it together.
Yeah, I think it was I forget his name. I think it's a Block, like Andre Block. I think he's one of the original investors in that, and that's where it all came from, because he's a big investor from Russia. But then again, I mean, before all this whole conflict, money's money, and Russians with money are just as good as Americans with money. So I mean, there's bound to be a lot of companies. I remember if you remember the Genius Fund, that the whole debacle, or the founder, like committed suicide and all that. But he was a big oligarch as well. He was a Russian investor as well. So a lot of the companies that came out from that, I mean, you could say the same thing, but it's we're going to start hearing it for sure among every industry.
Well, I mean, out of country investors, Russian investors, I don't think trouble people as much as someone attempting to influence elections by conspiring to push $1 million of his foreign funds to candidates and campaigns. The U.S. Attorney Damon Williams said that he attempted to corrupt our political system in advance of his business interests. I think that's what they're a little bit more pissed off about. Because ultimately,
sure.
would we take someone, if someone came from, Russia right now, I know is definitely on the outskirts. No one's doing business with Russia. So I'd say right now, maybe we'd take a different look at it. But 6 months ago, a year ago, would we have looked at a Russian investor? As an investor, yeah. I don't know anybody, trying to
exactly
to corrupt anything. I would say that not every Russian's a hacker, not every Russian's a bad person. You can't chalk that up. Everybody's kind of disconcerted with Russia right now because of what's going on between them and Ukraine. But really, money, like you said, people need it in investments. And realistically, the problem I think that they have with this, or the connection they're trying to have, is the influence they had over the elections prior to them getting into business there, more so than it being the investor. Because, a year ago, I would have taken some Russian money. I'll tell you what.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's not. I think the whole Russian part of the story is what made it a huge headline. I think this goes on quite a bit with, in politics, especially when it comes to licensing. That there's some backdoor dealings and things going on. Some legal, some not. Obviously, this one more on the not side. But does that really come down to as much the investor as far as the decision makers? Because the decision makers are entertaining these offers, which is not good for the industry as a whole. Yeah.
No, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I mean, I have an American Express card, of which it has travel perks and that kind of thing, and there's a lounge deal that they have. They sent out a notice saying that they were no longer conducting services in Russia at all. They weren't going to do it till further notice. I mean, from that to everybody, it's right now the world is not okay with the acts of war that are going on and that kind of stuff. So really, it's one of those things as to where, if you are going to deal with Russia, you better dot your I's and cross your T's, because it's going to be looked into right now, very hard, very closely, especially if it's in the cannabis industry. So
absolutely. I mean, and it's not only coming to that. I mean, there's even I don't know if you follow golf at all, but there's in the PGA Tour, they're having a competitive tour come up that's coming from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, is trying to start their own tour that's going to go against the PGA Tour, and they're throwing a lot more money to get some of these pros paid more. But now the big thing is they're kind of tied into Russia now. Russia's, like led by someone like Putin. Any kind of country that has kind of a dictatorship, we shouldn't accept any money from. So now they're trying to put ties with that. So I think it might even extend beyond Russia. Like any money that's coming from a dictatorship country where this is possible to happen, investors and people who are taking investments are going to have to take a second look, because public opinion is pretty important these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and alongside of that is everything's a lot more public. It's being recorded. It's out there now, so people do have to.
Well, it's cancel culture. They don't want to get canceled just right off the bat just because of one of the investors now. So now, yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And hey, I all of a sudden I was coming in here hot, and I forgot I know I said, hey Jason, you're on the show and that kind of stuff, and I made mention of it, but for everybody watching, I know we've got a couple people out there, and thanks again for being in the comments, but Jason is our chief technical officer, and for those of you who have joined us on the app, he's the mastermind behind that, putting all the code together, doing that kind of thing. But he's been with the company since day one. And Jason, sorry for not giving you a proper introduction to our weekly roll-up show. Just figured everybody knows you because we've had some pictures together.
For sure.
But yeah, thanks for jumping in and being part of this. Got to have you on more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially as we make the office look more like the background behind you, so the wall behind me.
Yeah, I'm in the room next door for everybody who's wondering.
Yeah, that's a green screen, everybody. We're just messing around here. So we've got some Wi-Fi issues we're attending to, but in the next couple of weeks we're going to give you a tour of the facility. We're going to start showing you what we're building out and what's to come of not only Trichome's productions here and the studios here in California, but what's going on down below with a few of the partners and what's going on with some California cannabis stuff. So we'll be taking you down for a live look at that part of the weekly roll up and hanging out with some cool people along the way. So yeah.
Well, speaking of cool people, how about Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson, I was just nice one, Jason. Nice one. Hey, as someone who's been there, done that, ups and downs in life. Right now, he's sitting there right next to the gurus as far as words of wisdom and eating mushrooms on podcasts and laying it down for people in a real way. he's out there. It's
hilarious because if you actually watch some of his podcasts, some of the things that he says, he's got his funny voice and people don't take him too seriously. They seriously as a fighter. But if you actually listen to some of the stuff he says, he's very insightful and he's a wise thinker. It's pretty interesting if anybody listens to his long form podcast. But gummies shaped like ears. That's pretty good. I like that.
I'm gonna have to say, he's teamed up with some bright people here, and I knew a few of the people that were first involved with Tyson's Ranch, and that I do believe is formerly Tyson's Ranch. I know Tyson 2.0 has come out. I don't know if that's with the same people or not, but
that's with Columbia Care. Columbia Care is a company that partnered with him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
For 2.0, not just the bike.
Yeah. Not for the entire branding. They partnered with them to do the entire Tyson 2.0. So you're going to see a lot of product coming out of that for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and then Ascend in Boston and Newton as well.
Yeah, even High Times. They're helping them with distribution. Yeah, but yeah, the brains behind the whole thing is the Columbia Care. Yeah, they're the main ones, the main partners.
And that is definitely a different group. A different group. And when it comes down to it, his marketing team, I know they came out with a drink called Dwink, based upon how we pronounce it, Dwink. I'm not sure it did very well. I'm not sure it's done as much as Tyson's Ranch was.
It's funny how he's probably one of the greatest fighters of all time, that they never do anything like hardcore, like knock out this or to focus on his fighting career. Instead, they do everything on something funny, like the way he talks or the ear that he bit off. It's funny how they're marketing him this way.
Sure. Yeah. we're working with his infamy, right? This is where he was. I mean, who doesn't remember that part, right? And basically, anyone younger than 30 will have someone happily explain it to him. It's like, no, he bit this dude's ear off in boxing. So yeah, it's one of those deals that I think it's great marketing. I've seen we put this one out on TikTok and it got quite a few views and lots of comments. And someone even said, "Oh, great! Now we're promoting cannibalism." And I was going to respond, "Well, I don't think he swallowed, so I'm not sure that's called cannibalism. I think he chewed it, but he didn't swallow it. He spit it out on the floor."
He did spit it out.
So I mean, really, you know, uh, yeah, all in fun and games, but I don't think we're quite to the point of promoting cannibalism with that gummy ear. But I think it's some pretty decent marketing. Um, yeah, I mean, let's see. He told Mass Live that after years of despair and other mental health concerns, he was left with little choice but to use opiates and other narcotics, which made him want to do nothing but watch marathons of Law and Order and eat food. He gained over 100 pounds and declared himself ready to die. And I don't know if you remember that time period in his life and seeing some of those pictures of him out in public and that kind of thing. But it, it resonates with that message right there. It seemed like he was falling off pretty hard. And then all of a sudden, along with his discovery of cannabis and a couple of the other psychedelics, this guy's on a whole new level of his life, right? He's
Absolutely.
now 53, 54, something like that. and that boxing exhibition he put on with Sugar Ray, or not Sugar Ray, but yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard. Um, Holy moly! I mean, he looked like an athletic specimen that basically just had the face of a 53-year-old and the body of mid 30-year-old guy.
I don't think it was Sugar Ray. I think Sugar Ray
No,
would have been too old. Yeah, it was
no, not Sugar Ray. Roy Jones. Roy
Roy
Jones.
Jones Jr. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it was. Well,
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Sorry, it's Friday, guys, and I'm about to roll up. I should be rolling up by now. But yeah, Roy Jones Jr. And
there you go.
thank you to Mr. J over here for filling that one in. But yeah, so when it boils down to it, I think he's one of the biggest powerhouses in cannabis right now, because he's transcending cannabis, right? He's an athlete. He's got hot boxing with Mike Tyson. No way this is a plug for Mike Tyson, but when it comes down to it, is he's all over the place. He's undeniable as a force in cannabis, in psychedelics, and just in life right now. So I see this as
Yeah,
the beginning of a lot of stuff coming
I
out
mean,
right now.
he's super marketable for cannabis, and he's positive for cannabis. I mean, because there's obviously a lot of entertainers like Snoop and stuff like that, or even anybody that's uses cannabis recreationally, just to kind of chill and relax and stuff like that. But when you talk about Mike Tyson, the kind of struggle he's gone through. I mean, he even like lost a daughter on that, and that threw him down like a horrible path. And
Yeah,
we hear a lot of cannabis kind of alleviating the need for like harder drugs and drugs that are detrimental, and that's kind of what it did for him. And people could literally see the change in his life, and then
yeah,
that in itself is great marketing for cannabis. So he's a good subject to kind of focus on for the cannabis industry for sure.
definitely. He's lived a life of that a lot of people have lived in a different way, just in a more extreme way. We all got to see him be an amazing athlete and boxer, and then we got to see some low parts of his life. Got to see some eccentric parts of his life. I mean, I guess eccentricity is found being a professional athlete and that kind of stuff. But all the tigers and animals and all that kind of stuff he had at his house, and all the just way out stuff he did, and now to be so humbled by life, right, and to be on the other side and preaching, just like Trevor Hinkle from Missouri over there, cannabis has saved his life,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well, that's the thing. He had the means, and he actually did probably try everything out there. So
right.
whatever he ended up with is probably the good stuff.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, I'm not sure if we had too much else happen, in the news this week here. Did you see anything come out?
No, news this week's been kind of under a pile of Ukraine, so there's not too much going off
Yeah,
this week. Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. I'm checking in on Marijuana Moment right now, and one of the headlines from yesterday was federal marijuana cases continue to decline with fewer than 1,000 cannabis charges in 2021. So hey, there's some good news. It's still 1,000, or whatever that number is, fewer than 1,000, but too many on a federal level. It shouldn't be happening. Um, let's see. Let's see what else. Because yeah, for those who aren't familiar with what we do as far as the format goes, is what we usually try to do is between our couple different platforms, whether it be TikTok or YouTube, which all you guys are on here, and that kind of stuff. We try to stick to covering what was most popular and that kind of deal. Trevor, I see that you say huge bust in Texas and that kind of thing. We're going to start getting into busts that are alongside of legal markets and that kind of thing, because the illicit market is affecting the legal market in quite a big way. The reason why we haven't really covered that kind of stuff until now is because, well, technically it's federally illegal, and that makes basically everybody up until this last couple of years really running the line of being quasi legal or a gray area, up until the states have really gotten behind the industry. So we weren't covering the busts because, who's to say who was really getting into it? We weren't detectives, nor did I want any knocking at my door. So, it's one of those things that we were trying to stick to cannabis as a business, cannabis as a community, and highlight the people who are doing good rather than, going after the salacious
Yeah, the
headlines and going after
problem
the
with those
bust.
stories is that you don't know the end result, because they'll just release that there was a bust, but doesn't necessarily mean the bust means that they were guilty of anything. They may get their stuff back, but
Right.
there was just some sort of reason for them to think that, but it's not 100% the end story. So and then by the
Right.
time the end story comes out, it's old news. So it's a little tough to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, out here in San Bernardino, they're taking down between 30 and 90 greenhouses, hoop houses every single week, with more than 40 to 60 arrests. It's Operation Hammer. We cover it from time to time, just because it is something that is actually very much so
No, Jared,
indicative of.
let me ask
Yeah.
you something. So, I mean, just
Yeah.
from your experience, I mean, obviously, getting rid of the illegal market is going to supposedly help the legal market, but
Hmm.
it seems to be negatively like having some effect. I mean, what is your take on it? If they do go and bust, all these illicit farms and things like that, is that a positive at the end of the day, or what's going to happen?
Well, the illicit market, I think it only gets shrunk. Um, I really think it only gets shrunk. You're never really going to have it disappear. In cannabis, the more states legalize it, the more they take the power away from it as an illicit currency, right? Because you can, everyone said, well, you can't grow money on trees. Well, organized crime and people, growers, have been literally disproving that for, past long time, right? Last 30, 40 years, it's been a major industry, and literally organized crime has been using it as a currency. It's a trade. It's a drug trade. You trade electricity and seeds and marijuana over here, and you trade it in for this, and you trade it in for money, and turn it into whatever, and ship it back across. And really, all it is a type of currency. The more states that make it legal, the less that currency is of value. Right now, we're seeing a bottom in what's happening because of the amount of people growing in California and growing across the states, because it's a slap on the wrist, because we're in this middle of legislature, in this middle of legalization, decriminalization, or whatever it is. Right now, the market, it's having a reckoning. There's a market adjustment coming right now. Ultimately, I'm one of those people that would have liked to see it less regulated. I didn't mind the medical markets and that kind of thing, and having it less regulated. But in a environment where it's going to be legal on or even decriminalized on a federal level, there's so much that goes with that, public safety, all that different kind of thing, and really, that for the masses, for keeping people out of trouble, and for for regulating the narrative and making this part of normal conversation is a better thing. The illicit market, I think, if anything, helps drive the pricing down on the legal market right now, because essentially there's so many taxes built into this that nobody knows at the end of this. Everyone's just saying it's really expensive cannabis. It's, dude, at the dispensary, it's really expensive. Here in California, more than half of that, 60% of that goes out the door to taxes. It's
Well,
not the
so
companies that are raking it
I'm
in.
wondering, I mean, because, you know, the number of busts that they're doing, that's not cheap to do. I wonder if that tax money is going towards some of these, you know, organized, you know, busts that they're doing and things like that. Do you think it's more effective to eliminate the illicit market by eliminating some of those taxes to get the price point closer to the illicit level? Or because, I mean, the more taxes you impose, the more expensive the product has to be, and the more likely, you know, consumers just like, hey, I'll try to find some illicit product because it's half the price. Do you think it would be more effective to get the price point more even, or do you think the way they're doing it right now is probably more effective?
They need to do both if they're really going to do that. They need, and they need to not start at, they're trying to impose this new ridiculous law of anything over 6 plants, right, is now a felony, or it carries some sort of charge with it. And because you're allowed to grow 6 plants legally, right? And anything over is illegally. Well, when it comes down to it, is if you're growing 6 plants, you have 6 plants flowering, you need some plants vegging, you need some clones, and you're going to have more than 6 plants. So that puts the average person in jeopardy if they do that type of thing. They got to allow for real home grow laws, and then make illegal what they want illegal, which is the organized crime aspect of it, the people that are coming in and actually robbing the state of their money, right? And so ultimately they have to eradicate that, as much as they have to basically allow for the survival of the California market, because they've damn near choked it out at this moment. So I do think it's a combination of both. They have to start at the cultivation tax, because ultimately the farmers are the most affected. They're the cultivators, they're the farmers that are out there having to compete with everybody who's out in San Bernardino or growing across, and literally from not paying for electricity to not paying taxes to not having to pay anything to do with employees, all that kind of stuff. It's a non-compete. There is no way to compete with it. So if we don't have farmers that can grow without that tax that's burdening them, we're not going to have a product here in California here real quick. So
they need to figure something out for sure. It's heading the wrong direction.
Yeah. And, you know, and actually New York, I know New York was looking at dropping taxes and then giving write-offs, which is nice, because New York's paying attention. They got this equity going on, and it has to do with people who were in trouble for it, and not only the people who got in trouble for it, but their kin, right? Their kids that went through this type of thing. And if you were somebody who had a parent go to jail over a plant, right, and go to jail over some trivial things that are no longer illegal, now you're in front of the line for these passes, and that's a great thing. I really do think that's a great thing. The next part of it is they're understanding that there are no tax breaks on the federal level. New York is now moving to the next level and saying, you know what, we'll help you from the state side as much as we can and give you some state incentives and state write-offs before the federal tax write-offs. California is the exact and implicit opposite. Oregon had no plant taxes. All of a sudden, California comes online and there's a plant tax of which basically doubles the price right off the bat.
Do you think it's actually justified, like, reasoning behind the taxes, or is it kind of more like, okay, well, you guys got it legal, now we're just going to make it as hard for you to actually implement a business out of it? Do you think it's some of that going on? Because some of the taxes seem pretty absurd. I mean, yeah, there's costs to do, you know, tracking and
taxing at the plant level has no. I mean, really, this is so overly taxed. It's not even funny.
Exactly.
I think we don't get away without an excise tax or a city and state tax type of thing at the point of sale, but all the taxes in between are absolutely outrageous, and really is what's killing it. So the first 3 taxes along the way, the supply chain, they're completely unjustified. And in my personal opinion, it's something that, again, going back to the beginning of this VA suicide therapy, the powers that be, they've been playing chess for a while with this. And really in California specifically, because that's the market we're talking about with this taxes, next year, Katie barred the doors, but they allow all sorts of money, and they allow outside investors into the state, and they allow for more licenses, or excuse me, larger than 10,000 square foot canopy and that kind of thing, which is basically kind of been done away with in between. But I think this has been a planned suffocation of the market. Really, this is them trying to get most of the illicit providers and the bootstrappers and the people that are from the legacy market out of the market, clearing way for the people who, run the current everything, traditional markets, alcohol, whatever you want to call it, just the people who run corporations now currently. They want a piece of the cannabis market, and essentially they're taxing it to death, so no one's left standing. Right now, we're witnessing a complete Armageddon. There's 80% of cannabis, 80% of California is either being absorbed or going out of business right now, this year, over an 18-month period.
Insanity. Yeah.
Insanity.
Insanity.
So, no, those are great questions. And really, I know that taxes have to be a part of it on the recreational level. That's why I like the medical thing, is because essentially people were able to utilize it on a recreational level around, California, the way it was done and structured. But there weren't the taxes involved, and the people who needed it on a medical level were getting it at prices they could afford without taxes that were driving it,
Mm-hmm.
But when you take this to a recreational level, that takes it to a spot where now the powers that be have to be concerned for public safety, and it's a whole different set of things. And now, yes, the federal government has to be involved. As much as I hate it, as much as everybody hates it, the federal government has to be involved, and they do it in the name of public safety, of which I think we're all fed up with. But when it comes down to it, is we do need to know how it affects most drivers. We do need to consider public safety on that. And hey, we're here as a channel. It's about the good, bad, and the ugly. We've said it before, and we'll say it again. It's not a cure-all for everybody. Some people don't even react very well to it. We want to know that, number one, what we all grew up knowing and is more true than not. It's like, hey, are we ever going to smoke our medicine? I don't know. We might vaporize it, but smoking a joint prescribed by a doctor, I don't know that we'll ever get there. But being able to do it on your own recreationally, hey, if that's the medicine you choose, you should be able to do it. I think that's right around the corner. Also, if you choose to do it and there's a discernible negative effect to it, we want to know that as well, right? We really, as a community, want to know that as well. So maybe we can try another method. Maybe we can try tinctures, edibles. We can try patches. We can do things of which technology has brought us in the open, just little crack of an open door, allowing manufacturers here in California, the states abroad, and all that kind of stuff, the chance to get in and allow for some technology to take place. It's really exciting, so once we get to a level as to where it's rescheduled, who knows what this plant is going to show us? Who knows really where that takes us?
It comes back down full circle to get some doctors to put their career on the line to vouch for it. That's what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely. So let's see. I've been watching the comments go off and everybody talking, and want to say thank you for everybody for joining in on this. And yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, hey, we've got up to 100 messages today. Thank you everybody for joining in with us and talking it over. We're going to be starting to do a little bit more of we're going to start putting out some new programming here shortly. We're going to be changing some of our morning shows in the next up and coming months, and then adding some shows. And let's see, Michigan corrupt governor. What's popping, Siege? I'm not sure about the Michigan corrupt governor on that. I'm uneducated on that, so I wouldn't be able to speak on that. But yeah. Michigan, didn't they have the recall there? Was that the state that they had the big recall? I'm not sure. But anyway, hey, before we get caught up in the comments, is we got a lot more programming coming. We've got some influencers coming around, and we've got some shows that, we're going to try to normalize the narrative here. And Jason's going to, I think, Jason, you got a show that we're working on having you come out too, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, be on the lookout for that. In the next couple of weeks, we will be putting out a link out here on YouTube for everybody to join the app. I know you can look around and find it here and there, but we do have an app, and we'd love for everybody.
Just to clarify for everybody, currently it's invite only, so you got to find somebody with the app to get in right now. So you can get in, you just need to know somebody.
Right. Well, and since they know us, we're going to go ahead and get you guys a special link so that we can make sure that we have you guys from YouTube invited in and see what you guys think of the app. We'd love to get the feedback. We're probably going to do a post here in the next few I'm sorry. I'm KRM, you've been on the app. Thank you for showing. And what's popping? What do y'all mean by the growing comment users account with the wicked in the name? I'm not sure. I wasn't able to follow that when Jason was talking. Trevor, you know what? We're going to go ahead and for everybody in the comments right now, we're going to go ahead and figure out how to post a link here in the next, I don't know, we'll call it 5 minutes. We'll get a special link here in the comment section. Once we end this live and it goes to a new video, go ahead and look in the comment section. We'll post it up in the description. We'll have a link for this app in the description. But yeah, I think at this point, Jason, what do you think? What do you think? We're going to call it a wrap?
I think we did our roll up. I think we rolled it up.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, and that's one other thing we're going to start doing here too, is probably rolling one up here to wrap out the weekend. But right now we've got some people here, and we don't have the proper airflow technology here to make it so that our downstairs neighbors, retail neighbors, don't have their customers smell it. So very shortly we'll end it up with a little bit of a roll up ourselves. But again, everybody, thank you for joining us. Check back here in the next 5 minutes, and we'll have a link. And Jason, thanks for jumping on. Look forward to having you on a few more times, and when John gets back too.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, sir. Talk to you soon.